As a follow-up video on humans explained by machine elves, I wanted to go a bit deeper into my relationship with humans. I think it is relevant to everything I say in my videos, and I also hope that my perspective will help you understand better society and the world you live in. But before we go into this, I want you to take a moment to send some good vibes to those who support this channel and who make the 434 plan possible. These videos are getting made quicker because of people who make contributions. They finance the structure behind those videos, and their financial commitment will go a long way in helping others. And this deserves praise. Thanks a million, guys. And if you would like to join them, please go to Patreon, PayPal, Subscribestar, or use the cryptocurrency links in the video description. I'll start from describing my relationship with humans. As I mentioned in the previous video, my problem with being human started when I was 5. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and looking at my hands and thinking, this looks very alien. I remember looking at my face in the mirror and not recognizing myself, thinking, whose reflection is this? From an early age, I always had a problem with understanding evil and pain in this world. I remember vividly one scene when after taking a bath, I was standing on the toilet and my mom was drying me with a towel. And I just started crying, and she asked me, why are you crying? And I said, because of all the children without parents that don't have anyone to love them. And I remembered this look on her face, this confusion and misunderstanding of what I was talking about, like a complete emotional communication breakdown. That was the moment when I realized that there's something different about me, and it wasn't just this physical form. Who I was very different. I quickly started getting into trouble with teachers because of me questioning reality. They really didn't like me not being obedient and not following orders like everybody else. Around the age of 11 or 12, the problems got so serious that my parents took me to a psychiatrist, and they did a series of tests on me, and they asked me to do an IQ test. It turned out that my IQ was too high for my age. And also, they found out there's something wrong with my emotional profile. By the way, the test didn't make sense because I remember thinking, those questions are so stupid, there's no way they're real, and I was just giving fake answers. And the doctors couldn't see through it. But after getting those results, I started treating them as validation for why I can become an asshole now. I remember from the age of 12 how I started distrusting humans and how I started relying solely on what I believed was true and what made sense. I quickly realized that the whole educational system is a joke, and I stopped respecting it. And then around 1997-98, the internet emerged. And for the first time in history, we all learned the truth about humankind. Discovering the system and mechanisms governing human nature was absolutely petrifying to me. I remember feeling like Mila Jovovich in Fifth Element when she got to letter W. I remember finding out about the history of human cruelty. I discovered how emotional immaturity is responsible for everybody's decisions. I started seeing human ego and how it runs the whole show. I knew that everyone's delusional, that everyone believes in things that make absolutely no sense. I became aware of how corporate selfishness destroys the environment, how ignorant humans are, how scared they are. I think the biggest problem for me was human obedience, how easy they were to control. But for me personally, the biggest issue was how illogical they are, how no one can connect the dots, and how so many people couldn't understand what I was trying to tell them. I also couldn't understand how lost everyone is, that the sense of security is achieved through enslavement, and no one really wants to be freed. That was one of the worst discoveries for me. Albert Einstein once said that our entire much-praised civilization generally could be compared to an axe in the hands of a pathological criminal. And I always felt this way. I mean, look at humans from an alien perspective. That's what I do to this day. If you were to define human personality, the one thing you would notice, there are two distinctive features. One is the sense of being lost, and the other one is always being wrong. And then, of course, September 2001 happened, and that started my painful truth-seeking journey that lasts to this day. A few years later after that, I reached my first breaking point. In 2010, I quit my job and I stayed at home learning to meditate and discovering the truth of everything. This led me to discovering Wayne Dyer, and I started realizing that this physical thing is not necessarily all there is to humans. I started seeing the other side of humans. I realized that who they are depends strongly on how you interact with them. Things started getting interesting, but I also learned that I don't know myself. I didn't know who I was, and that started bothering me. I started seeing how my behavior started shaping somebody else's behavior and how their behavior had an impact on what I do and my decisions. I started seeing how this whole human mechanism is connected. But at the same time, that was the moment when I really started struggling with being in the human world. It slowly started being too much for me. And I came to the conclusion that I'm incompatible with this world. I saw myself as logical, solution-oriented, willing to fight for the right thing, while being compassionate, emotional, and sensitive. That was not a good combination. It worried me that my values had nothing to do with the rest of society, and I started having conflicts with everyone. I lost almost all of my friends. I was constantly arguing with my family. I started to question everything. Nothing made sense anymore, and I deconstructed every element of reality. And I ended up in a situation in which I had a choice between realizing that it's either me who's absolutely crazy and everyone's normal, or the more difficult one, where I was the only normal one and everyone else was completely nuts. And then there was the scary realization that everything is dependent on children in grown-up bodies. I realized that no one really grows up, that everyone's as clueless as me. And this actually freaks me out to this day. The fact that my life and the life of the people I love is so often in the hands of primitive beings who can't even help themselves, let alone me or my close ones. And the fact that the whole social structure is built on them. I mean, you will agree with me that this structure we're in makes very little sense. It's a dysfunctional system of conflicting solutions to unnecessary problems, all created by quote-mark humans. And we all have to share the same reality with them. Right after my 35th birthday, I discovered psychedelics, and I finally understood who I was and what humans were. I finally learned about humans and quote-mark humans. So let me tell you what it looked like in detail. I was taken to another dimension where I was shown what I really look like. And this diamond-shaped energy form you're looking at now, that's what I look like. I will make a video about this, but I came from a distant dimension where everything is different. And I came to Earth as a shield to protect others. I was told that I'm supposed to reflect negativity through love and positive messages. I was shown what this society is made of. I saw that most of humans are the original inhabitants of this reality. I saw how everyone cluelessly moves around trying to find answers to their questions. It was a big blue sea of lost souls in infinite darkness. They're called quote-mark humans to distinguish them from real humans who have the ability to develop and progress. It is not clear to me if quote-mark humans can escape their true form and if they can leave this reality. But what I know is that they lack the tools and the equipment that's necessary to achieve different states of existence. They are their own enemies. I finally realized the difference between two types of humans that I've been struggling with my whole life. And I finally understood why it is that when I speak to some of them, I encounter a complete lack of connection and understanding from them. I finally understood that trying to connect with them is like expecting a fish to fly. If you ever talk to anyone and you reach the limits of their perception, the limits of their logical understanding of your arguments, that means you're dealing with a quote-mark human, the original inhabitant of this reality, who is very unlikely to gain the knowledge and experience necessary to progress into another form of existence. I learned a long time ago not to waste time on them. I've known people who I've been trying to get through for 20 years. Trust me when I tell you, it's a complete waste of energy. And then there are humans, people who are open-minded, people who understand the limitations of their knowledge, people who are willing to change and get better at things, people who don't ridicule you, and people whose ego doesn't run the show. They're basically people who don't make you feel bad when you talk to them. It all made sense now. I finally learned about different levels of development, how even though we're all in the same body, we're not at the same stages of form development. We're from different places and with different missions. But the most important thing I learned was that love is the main driver behind every human action, or rather the lack of it. I learned the amount of love that someone receives throughout their life is directly proportional to what kind of a personality they cultivate and the type of a person they become. I learned how to look at everyone as a lost child, someone who got damaged in the process, and how it's not their fault. Because I learned that humans are not born evil, they're made evil. I was told that every human is your teacher and that they should be respected for it. That made a big difference. And ironically, all of this knowledge, that was the only reason I can function in society now, as that was also the moment I discovered the depth of human ignorance and the power of fear and social conditioning. If it wasn't for mushrooms, I don't know how I could have handled the discovery that humans will sacrifice their own life for the price of not opening their minds. That's probably one of the most scary discoveries, the power of human conviction and dedication to beliefs that are not theirs. And I also learned what can only be described as the depth of human stupidity. Because at the age of 35, I learned that everything we know is one big lie. And I mean everything, but that's for another video. So how do I see humans now? Well, I finally understand that this is all a simulation and that this primitive form is necessary and that it all has its purpose. We are players in a simple game of love generation. And I admire humans for their ability to give and receive love, for how caring and compassionate they can be, how they can organize in helping each other. But still, my human part still hates them for the low quality of everything they do. This imperfect world really drives me nuts. But I guess it's my ego speaking. It bugs me that technology allows us not to work anymore and we still work. We've reached the stage that we can become free and independent, and we're not doing this. The animal level instinct-based drivers, the greed, the inability to think logically and see the truth that's staring them in the face all around them, that's very difficult. Some of quote-mark humans are really like NPCs, and this is how you recognize them. There's no spiritual layer to them. They're ridiculing things they don't understand. Their blind obedience, the fear of everything out of the comfort zone, and being wrong about everything. It takes a lot of energy to know why they are the way they are. It's an amazing learning curve. And now I know that if I get into conflicts with them, it's my fault. Mushrooms gave me the best mission ever. Finding you guys gave me hope. I'm finally not alone, and I know we can share our human existence together, learning from each other, saving each other, and giving each other hope. Every time I see someone in the comment section asking me a question and somebody else answering it with love and understanding when there's nothing else for me to add, that's absolutely amazing. That's what I understand as a human experience. I think together we can create and learn about mechanisms of dealing with the other part of humanity. So about me not being entirely human, I've been hearing this my whole life from everybody around me. It was only through psychedelics that I realized that this is true. What I saw on mushrooms allowed me to connect the dots. And I just want to say, if you feel like this, don't ignore it. If you have a problem with being a human, let me tell you that there's a reason why you feel the way you feel. I was born with a strong sense of a mission here, and it is clear now what it is. At the same time, years ago, I started having this strong feeling that this is my last time here. I even got a message from someone yesterday, from the entities they talked to, and their message for me was exactly that. I'm not sure about this. Something tells me that this might be my last existence in this reality before I move to the next stage, next dimension, or next form. Very early in my life, I started feeling very tired with this existence, as if this was something I have repeated many times, and that might be the reason. But I still have the rest of my life ahead of me here, and who knows, maybe I'll come back. Love 434.